Chapter 5, Part 3. The air in the fund office crackled with a new, more dangerous kind of static. Rain blew through the broken window, peppering the spilled files and shattered glass. Anthony knelt, ignoring the damp, his gloved finger tracing the distinct, aggressive tread of the boot print. The scars on his arm burned with a cold fire that had nothing to do with nerve damage. Not local. Russo's voice growled through Angela's phone, set to speaker on the floor. That tread pattern, L4/M5 assault boot. Standard issue for certain contractor firms. The kind that don't ask questions, just collect paychecks and evidence. His tone was grim. Eleanor's gardeners had style. These guys? They're blunt instruments. Means the playing field just changed. Got nastier. Megan, her shock hardening into furious resolve, was already at a secondary laptop, fingers flying. They took the originals, but they didn't get this. She plugged in an external hard drive. I digitized everything before I even put it on the reader. Ben's notes, the maps, the soil reports, it's all here. They just got a folder of blank negatives I use for testing. A tight, vengeful smile touched her lips. Harbor's End paranoia for the win. Relief, sharp and fleeting, washed over Angela. They hadn't lost Ben's evidence. But the breach was a declaration of war. They knew exactly where to look. They knew about Ben's archives. Anthony stood, his face pale but his expression grimly focused. The burning in his arm seemed to sharpen his senses, cutting through the residual fog of pain. They knew because someone told them. Someone who knew the fund's layout. Someone who knew Ben's records were here. His gaze swept the room, landing on the broken window. This wasn't a random smash and grab.
It was a surgical strike.
Which means Eleanor's network isn't just awake, it has eyes inside Harbor's End. The thought was a chilling rain down Angela's spine. A informant. A traitor in the newly forged trust of the town. We need to move the source files, Angela said, her voice urgent. If they knew about the archives, they might know about the greenhouse. Already on it, Mrs. Henderson's voice crackled from Angela's other phone, an open line she'd kept active. She was still at the greenhouse. Peters is with me. Place is quiet. But something's off. The berry pots you moved?
The soil's been disturbed.
Not by much. A careful hand. But someone's been sniffing around. Anthony's head snapped up. Don't touch anything. Don't go near the bench.
Get out now.
The command was sharp, laced with a terror that wasn't his own. It was the resonance, shrieking a warning only he could hear. A beat of silence from the other end. Then Mrs. Henderson's voice, low and steady. Too late, boy. We're already inside. And you're not going to believe what we found. The greenhouse felt different. The familiar scent of damp earth and decay was now undercut by a new, faint odor. Ozone and something sweetly metallic, like overheated wiring and rotting honey. Mrs. Henderson and Old Man Peters stood back from the bench where the source vials were buried. Peters held a heavy-duty flashlight, its beam trained on the terracotta pots. The pots themselves were unchanged. But from the drainage holes in the bottom of each one, a faint, sickly greenish-yellow light pulsed rhythmically, casting wavering, malevolent shadows on the concrete floor. It was the same faint luminescence they'd seen in the crystalline structures within the vials, but now it was active, bleeding out into the soil, into the dormant roots of the berry bushes. The hell is that? Peters muttered, making the sign of the cross. Anthony pushed past Angela, his face ashen. He didn't need to dig to know. They're reacting, he breathed, his voice thick with dread. He held up his left arm. The neoprene sleeve was no longer just warm. A faint, answering greenish-yellow glow was visible through the material, pulsing in sync with the light from the pots. The scars were not just resonating, they were conducting. Something triggered them. The break-in, the adrenaline, the proximity of the boot print, it's like a starter motor. Angela stared, horrified, as the light from the pots grew slightly brighter. The berry bush in the center pot shuddered. A small, tightly furled leaf at the tip of a stem unfurled with a grotesque, jerky motion, not towards the dim gray light from the roof, but towards Anthony. It was a deep, unhealthy purple, veined with the same glowing green-yellow. "It's not dormant," Angela whispered. Ben's notes, he said the source needed specific triggers. Mineral-rich soil, but also a biosignature. A specific genetic or neurological signature from someone already exposed to the toxin. Her eyes met Anthony's, wide with realization. "You're the trigger, Anthony. Your resonance. Your scars. Being near them, you're waking them up." The implications were catastrophic. The source material wasn't just a blueprint. It was a sleeper agent. And Anthony Moretti, Eleanor's son, the victim of her poison, was its living key. "We have to get it out of here," Anthony said, his voice strained. He was breathing heavily, as if the very air in the greenhouse was becoming toxic to him. The glow from his arm was brighter.
Now.
Before it blooms." "Into what?" Mrs. Henderson asked, her usual steel replaced by a tremor of fear. "Into whatever Eleanor designed it to become," Anthony said, his gaze fixed on the unnaturally glowing plant. "A new toxin. A worse one. A weapon that seeks out its targets." He reached for the pots with his good hand, then flinched back as the plant shuddered again, a thorny tendril whipping out to brush against his glove. Where it touched, the neoprene sizzled faintly. "Don't touch it," Angela cried, pulling him back. "Then what?" Peters demanded. "We can't just leave it here to grow." Megan's voice, tinny from the phone on the floor, cut through the panic. "Ben's notes. The digital files. He has a section on neutralization protocols for compromised source material. He mentions extreme cold, liquid nitrogen temperatures. Suspends all metabolic and catalytic activity indefinitely. Where the hell are we supposed to get liquid nitrogen in Harbor's End?" Russo's voice boomed from the other phone. "The cannery," Old Man Peters said suddenly. "The new flash freezing line. They use liquid nitrogen to freeze the tuna. Got a big storage tank out back." It was a desperate, crazy chance, but it was the only one they had. "Russo," Angela snapped into the phone. "Meet us at the cannery. We need access."
Now.
"On it," Russo grunted. The line went dead. "Okay," Angela said, turning to the pulsating, malevolent pots. "We move them."
Carefully.
"Peters, Henderson, get the wheelbarrow from the garden shed. Line it with every tarp and burlap sack you can find. We need to insulate them, contain the light." Working with terrified haste, they carefully, so carefully, lifted each heavy pot into the wheelbarrow, piling burlap around them, trying to block the eerie glow. The plants within seemed to sense the movement, thrashed weakly against their confines. Anthony stood back, sweat pouring down his face, his glowing arm held stiffly at his side, a beacon of agony. He was the lure, the catalyst, and every second near the awakening source was torture. They maneuvered the wheelbarrow out of the greenhouse into the drizzle. The faint green-yellow light seeped through the coverings, creating a moving pool of nightmare in the gray afternoon. The short journey to the old cannery felt like a funeral procession for a stillborn monster. Russo was there, along with a nervous-looking foreman holding a massive set of keys. "Tanks around back. Emergency purge valve. You sure about this?" "No," Angela said honestly. "But it's the only play we have." Around the back of the cannery, a large, stainless steel tank stood like a silent sentinel, venting faint plumes of condensed air. Russo and the foreman worked a heavy valve. A port hissed open, issuing a cloud of intensely cold vapor.
"Now!"
Russo yelled. Peters and Henderson, using thick leather gloves, lifted the first pot. The plant inside lashed out, a thorned vine whipping, scoring a deep gash across Peters' glove. He cursed but didn't let go. They shoved the pot into the open port. A horrific sizzling sound erupted, and the green-yellow light was instantly extinguished, replaced by the pure white cloud of cryogenic vapor. One by one, they consigned the pots, the source material, the terrible potential within, to the deep freeze. With each one, Anthony's breathing eased slightly, the terrible glow in his arm fading, until finally, as the last pot vanished into the tank and the valve was slammed shut, the light died completely. He slumped against the cold metal of the tank, gasping, his arm once again just scarred flesh and memory. Silence descended, broken only by the hiss of the tank and their ragged breaths. They had stopped the immediate crisis. They had Ben's digital evidence. But the truth was now undeniable and far more terrifying than they had imagined. Eleanor hadn't just engineered a plant. She had engineered a symbiotic weapon, one that lay dormant until activated by the very victims it was designed to target. Anthony was a walking trigger. And somewhere out there, in Indonesia, in Norway, in other places with the right geology, other caches of source material lay buried, waiting for their catalyst to come within range. The break-in wasn't just about stealing evidence. It was a message. A reminder that the roots of Eleanor's empire were not just deep, they were alive. And they were hunting for their keys. Angela looked at Anthony, pale and shivering against the freezing tank, and then at the digital hard drive Megan held tightly. They had the map to the network. But the network, it seemed, had a map to them. The Titapool had revealed its deepest, most predatory secret. And the hunt was now bidirectional.